Welcome to Unbelievable Stories. Today's story is full of shocking twists and real drama. Subscribe and like to stay updated. Let's dive in. Have you ever felt the sting of betrayal sever connections you believed were invincible? I have. The life I built with Rachel, which once felt like a love-filled dream, fell apart when I discovered her with my own brother. "What's wrong, son? You look troubled," my father asked, still oblivious to the disaster that was about to unfold. "It meant nothing, Jake, I swear." Her words bounced off the emptiness of my despair. I was left to walk the lonely road through the ruins of trust and loyalty. This is my story. Watch as it unravels. Growing up, my brother David and I often fought over dumb stuff. You could say we both liked to win. Since he was 2 years older, I didn't win much, but I never gave up. Even in college, we both kept trying to be the best. He was the football star, and I was the top scorer in basketball. He could lift more weights, but I could beat him in a wrestle. The one thing we didn't fight over was who we dated. Mostly we liked different people. He dated older girls who didn't look at younger guys like me, and honestly, the idea of kissing someone he had didn't sit right with me. Call it weird, but that's just me. In my last year of college, while David was in his second year at Chicago University for business, I met Rachel in biology class. We were lab partners. She let me cut up the frog while she pointed out all its parts. She was getting over a cheating boyfriend, which took time. By the end of the year, Rachel and I were a couple. She was my date for prom, and we got lots of votes for prom king and queen but didn't win. Most thought she was why we got so many votes since she was very pretty, and I was just okay. Everyone said we were perfect for each other. After we finished school, both 20 and ready for anything, our folks threw a big party for us. That's when I asked her to marry me, and when she said yes, I was the happiest guy around. We got close fast after meeting, in every way. We just clicked, even when it came to being close in a love way. We were so happy together. Rachel's big sister got a job as a radiologist tech at the nearby hospital after finishing her studies at the local tech college. Wanting to be like her, Rachel signed up for the same 2-year course starting in the fall. I didn't want to be away from her, so I joined a 4-year HVAC course at the same college. My dad also worked in HVAC and loved it, which made me want to do it too. Since I needed to help pay for my studies, I took a summer job at the same place as my dad. Rachel's folks had already paid for her first year at college, so she decided to relax and enjoy her summer. Every weekday evening, she would be at my place waiting for me. After a quick shower, we would either stay in and watch a movie or go out. It was the third week of summer on a Wednesday at work that we got a call about a big air conditioner in a store. The machine's inside parts might be broken, but Robert wanted to check with a special tool before deciding. He had just put new batteries in the tool but left it at home. As the helper, I was sent back to get it, glad to get away from the hot roof. When I got to the house, I found the tool quickly and was about to leave when I heard laughing from upstairs. My brother David was back from college for the summer. Hoping to catch him off guard, I snuck up the stairs and listened at his door, wanting to see him red-faced. But I wish I hadn't. Right away, I knew the girl's voice was my soon-to-be wife, Rachel. The love sounds were clear. I felt my heart break and anger boil at once. I lived that mix right then. I crept into the room, my heart sinking at the sight. They didn't see me, lost in love, her arms and legs wrapped around him tight as he moved close to her. She was there by choice, not forced. I grabbed her hand, pulled off the ring, and she yelled, shocked, seeing my angry face. David was stunned to see me know of their secret. I left fast, the ring in my pocket. They yelled behind me, but I walked on. They would not chase me outside, not like this. I went back to work, gave Robert the tool. He saw my upset look. "What's wrong, son? You seem hurt." I took him aside, away from the others. I went to the house for the tool and found Rachel and David together. I saw them. She wanted to, and they knew what they were doing. "Damn, that's rough, Jake. We thought better of your brother, and it's a shock Rachel would do this to you." Should we go and talk to them now? That's not a good idea, Robert. Right now, I feel like hurting them both. I can't be near them. I need to cool off. Taking some time sounds wise. Take the rest of the day off. I'll tell the boss you're not feeling good. Don't sweat it, kid. After I didn't pick up my phone from calls by Rachel, then by David, they kept texting me, asking me to ring them back. That was a no-go. I was mad at them more than I ever thought I could be. I couldn't head back home with them around, so I hit up my buddy Max. He was chilling at home gaming online and said I could stay over for as long as I needed. He was shocked about what Rachel did and tried to cheer me up with some games. I tried to think up a whole new plan for my life after everything flipped upside down. I barely shut my eyes that night, my mind racing, trying to piece everything together. The next day, after a quick shower, I threw on the same clothes, grabbed breakfast at Denny's, and made it to work on time. Jake, seeing you here today makes me relieved. We were all worried, my dad said. If it's okay, I don't want to talk about it, Robert. Can I just work and get through today? Sure, kiddo, I get that, but you got to face life at some point. Running from it isn't the answer, he pointed out. He was right. I hated admitting it, but he was. Yet I was so filled with anger, thinking if I bumped into David now, I might just lose it. I threw myself into the toughest tasks, going for all the hard work without anyone asking. I needed to get rid of some dark thoughts, and pushing myself to the limit helped. We had to juggle this big compressor out of its spot and heave it over to where a crane could whisk it off to our truck. It was a lucky break for me. The compressor needed fixing quick, and the client was ready to pay extra for fast work. As the newbie, it was my job to drive 6 hours to the nearest fix shop. I'd get there early to help with the unload. This meant I'd stay overnight away from home, which was okay by me. I'd get cash back for food and a place to sleep. I kept my phone off. I didn't want to talk to anyone about my messed-up love life. I was not in a good mood. Lucky for the customer, the fix shop had a Riodido compressor. We swapped the broken one for this one. I wrote a note for the swap fee, and by 9 a.m. I was on my way back. I called to let them know when I'd arrive so they could get a crane ready. By the afternoon, the heavy compressor was lifted off my truck. I helped fit the fix unit back in its place while the workers put in new seals and hooked up the pipes. Then they checked for leaks and started a pump to clear the air out. For the night, we got back home by 10 p.m. After a shower, I locked my room and watched TV until I fell asleep. David tried to get in, but I didn't answer. I heard Robert tell him to leave me be. I slept until 9 a.m. on Thursday. The house was too quiet. I got dressed, and when I opened my door a bit, I heard voices below. They knew I was up when I used the bathroom. Going downstairs, I was surprised to see so many people in the living room. My family, Rachel and her folks, our church pastor, and 3 close friends were all there. I knew this was going to be a mess. Rachel looked away and stayed in her chair. Robert initiated, Jake, I regret having to address you in this manner, but it was collectively decided that it would be best to address the issue openly so that it can be resolved and put behind us. Linda added, Indeed, dear. We are all aware of the unfortunate incident you witnessed, and your brother and Rachel are here to offer their apologies. David started, I apologize, Jake, for you walking in on us. It was an unexpected situation. Sometimes things happen naturally. You know how one thing can lead to another. In a moment of weakness, I made a move on Rachel. It was not her fault. I take full responsibility. You can hate me, but you must forgive Rachel and move forward. You two are meant to be together. The silence from my end made everyone uneasy. I glared at Rachel until she finally spoke up. It was a mistake, Jake. I don't know what came over me to do that with him. It was the first time, and it won't happen again. I'd rather die than see that look on your face. I apologize to you and everyone here. Please forgive me and return my ring. Saying yes to you was the best day of my life, and marrying you will make me the happiest girl alive. Her parents, who had always been kind to me, nervously smiled in support of their daughter but wisely remained silent regarding her recent actions. You're claiming it meant nothing? Yes, what happened with your brother meant nothing to me. That's a shame. You're admitting that you threw away your future with me for something meaningless. Is that supposed to make me feel better? She fell silent once more. Pastor Lewis felt it was his turn to try to break through my emotional barrier. I won't force you to forgive her immediately, Jake. You are well acquainted with the teachings of the Bible, but if you would allow me, I would like to remind you of a quote from the 20th century poet Alexander Pope amidst the turmoil and difficulties in your life. It goes, "To err is human, to forgive, divine." We are all human, including you, Jake. The good book reminds us that none of us are righteous, not a single one. Everyone here cares for you deeply and empathizes with the pain in your heart at this moment. We understand that it will take time, but hopefully, you will eventually accept the two sincere apologies offered to you this morning and grow from this experience rather than allowing it to consume you. It's easier said than done, Pastor. Rachel sobbed as I had not embraced her or expressed forgiveness after the pleas made on her behalf. Max, my closest friend, flashed a smile at me and said, "Hey, bro, we know it's tough, but you're even tougher. You're too strong to let this bring you down. We all know that Rachel is a great person. Besides, everyone makes mistakes, right? How about we go play a game of pool to clear your mind? Maybe this time the three of us will even let you win," he playfully suggested. My other two friends chuckled in agreement. They all stood there waiting expectantly for me to respond. However, I wasn't ready to say what they wanted to hear. I appreciate all of your efforts, but am simply not prepared to confront all of this just yet. I need more time and space to come to terms with everything, and I cannot make any promises about the outcome. If I were to speak my mind right now, I would only embarrass myself, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. Rachel, I would like you to leave the house key that I gave you here so you can refrain from visiting for a while. I need you to stay away from me until I can sort through my emotions. But how can we move forward if I'm not there to support you, Jake? I love you and only you, and I want to be with you forever. I closed my eyes tightly and let out a deep sigh as her words pierced my heart like a sword. I shifted my gaze towards her parents, making direct eye contact. "It seems like she can't hear me," I stated. "Would you mind keeping her away from me for a while?" "I mean, absolutely no contact. I need this space, otherwise, I might lose control." Both of them nodded silently, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Apologies, my friends," I addressed my three companions. "I don't have the time or mindset to engage in a game of pool right now. My mind is preoccupied with numerous thoughts. And going for a walk." I directed my attention towards David. "If you have any sense, you'll never speak to me again. I assure you if you do, we'll both end up in the hospital." With that, I left and strolled around the neighborhood, attempting to clear my mind of the intense animosity I now harbored towards David and Rachel. Despite the overwhelming rage within me, I believed I had handled the impromptu confrontation rather well. It seemed that my father had a serious conversation with David as he made himself scarce whenever I was present. I made an effort to minimize my time spent at home to avoid any interaction with him. Even when I was there, I secluded myself in my room. However, this didn't deter my parents from approaching me individually almost every day to discuss my feelings towards Rachel and David. I tried to maintain politeness, but in reality, I would zone out and divert my thoughts elsewhere, refusing to listen to their attempts to dictate my emotions, thoughts, words, and actions. My friends also sided with Rachel, bombarding me with advice to forgive and forget. Eventually, I started distancing myself from them, spending less and less time together. I continued working with my father, who respected my boundaries and refrained from bringing up the topic, for which I was grateful. Then, unexpectedly, another bombshell was dropped. 3 weeks later, on a Thursday morning, I found myself blindsided once again by the same individuals, except this time our pastor was absent from the meeting. Rachel, wearing a lovely sundress, had a radiant smile on her face as she approached me. "Jake, I have some incredible news," she exclaimed, handing me a pregnancy test. "You're going to be a father." Impregnant, she joyfully announced. With a shocked expression, I glanced over at her parents. We took her to check with the doctor. It's true, Rachel will have a baby, her mom said in a low voice. They didn't look any happier than I felt right then. I turned to Rachel. When can you do the test? What test, Jake? What are you on about? I've double-checked already. I'm for sure pregnant. I mean a special DNA test before the baby comes to find out who the dad is. Rachel got mad and yelled, I'm tired of your nonsense, Jake. Yes, I slipped up one time only, but that doesn't mean the baby isn't yours. You thinking him someone who just goes around is not fair. Get over it, dear. This is good for us. We can still get married and have this baby like we dreamed. We love each other, and we plan to have a family. Can't you see we belong together? Her words didn't change my mind. You say it was just once. Sorry, but I don't buy it. What I saw you doing with him wasn't like our first time at all. But even if it was just once, that tells me anyone with good talk can lure you. So when's the test happening? Her mom stepped in. I don't like how you're talking to my girl. For some reason, Rachel still loves you more than anything. I guess you might pull something like this, so I looked up some info. The only test I'd let her take is the easy kind from outside the belly, which is way pricier than the other kind. I won't allow this. The easy test costs about $2,000 to $2,250, depending on how fast you want to know. Our insurance won't cover that cost. We had a discussion and came to the conclusion that it would be more beneficial to allocate the funds towards the well-being of both her and the baby rather than wasting it on proving paternity. All you need to do is wait until the baby is born, and then a simpler and less expensive test can be conducted. If you still wish to pursue it after seeing and holding your child, I am willing to cover the cost of the test entirely. I can either write you a check immediately or provide you with the cash once I have access to the bank. It seems that everyone believes that child is mine, but I need to confirm it for my own peace of mind. This entire situation is causing me a great deal of distress. Robert spoke up on my behalf. Assuring you, I can vouch for my son. If he says he will cover the expenses, he will. Rest assured, there will be no financial burden on your end. Rachel and her family seemed disappointed by my insistence on the test. She informed me, we will inform you of the test date, Jake. They will require a cheek swab from you to determine the results. I found it peculiar that no one suggested testing David at the same time. To them, it seemed like an open and shut case. I nodded and replied, I will be available at any time. Just inform me a day in advance so I can make arrangements if necessary. I still need some time, Rachel. I understand your excitement, but perhaps I can share in it once we have the results. So the sooner, the better. Her spirits lifted upon hearing my positive response. She assured me, I promise I will get tested as soon as possible, sweetheart. I completely agree with you that the sooner we have the results, the sooner we can move forward. On Monday evening, I received a text from Rachel stating that the test would take place on Tuesday morning at 10:30, along with the location. I met them there and went through the necessary procedures. As promised, I covered the entire cost of the lab tests using my debit card. We were informed that we could expect definitive results within 7 days. David seemed relieved that the attention had shifted away from him and on to me. He felt comfortable enough to approach me. Thanks, bro, for making me an uncle, he jested, saying that he didn't care if it was a boy or a girl and that he planned to spoil the child rotten. Once again, I chose to ignore his comment and simply walked away. If he believed for even a moment that I had moved past his betrayal, he was gravely mistaken. A week later, the results arrived in an overnight UPS envelope. David, my parents, and I gathered together, eager to discover the certified truth. Well, what does it say? My mother asked impatiently. In summary, Linda, after reading it twice, it states that Jake Whitfield, you are not the father. Care to speculate who is? No further tests are necessary. I suppose that answers the question of whether or not he used protection. David, you are dead to me, and the next time you encounter my promiscuous ex-fiancé, the mother of your illegitimate child, kindly inform her that she is dead to me as well. I have no desire to ever see or speak to either of you again for the remainder of my life. Is that clear for the rest of my days? Jake, my father demanded, I understand that you are rightfully upset. However, as long as you reside under my roof, that kind of language will not be tolerated. Do you comprehend? Crystal clear. Please excuse me, I have an appointment. It infuriated me that my own brother could seduce and impregnate my fiancée and that my parents were accepting of it. Yet if I were to confront them about their betrayal, it would be deemed intolerable. I needed to escape that environment. I left, grabbed some fast food, and went to a movie to pass the time. I turned off my phone to avoid any unwanted communication. It was 10:30 p.m. when I finally returned home. Rachel's mother's car was parked outside. A sense of dread washed over me as I entered the house. Where have you been? My mother inquired. I went out to eat and then to a movie. Why? We've been waiting for you for hours. Sit down, Jake. We need to talk. There was an empty seat next to Rachel. I disregarded the setup and opted for a single chair across the room. Annoyed, she continued, Jake, considering the way you stormed out earlier, I assumed that you hadn't informed Rachel about the DNA results. So I called. Rachel's words left me speechless. Do you honestly expect me to marry you and raise someone else's child after what you did? Jake, I love only you. Technically, we're not married yet, so it's not considered cheating. What happened with your brother was before we tied the knot, and our baby will have your family's genes, so it will resemble you. My disbelief must have been evident on my face. Then my mother chimed in. We understand this is far from ideal, but technically she's correct. The baby is part of our family. David is already halfway through his 4-year degree. It would be a shame for him to drop out now to care for the child. He's made significant progress, and don't deny your feelings for her. The love you two share is strong. It would be wise to move past this and marry her. What about my education, Linda? I'm starting school in the fall. Doesn't that matter? It does, dear, but your path is different. Your father mentioned an apprenticeship program at his workplace. It may take longer than a traditional degree, but it's a stable option. It would be easier for you to support a family this way. Think about it, Jake. It's a practical solution for everyone involved. Doesn't that make sense? I was taken aback by their suggestions. Are you suggesting that I should marry a known cheater as my wife and raise another man's baby as my own just to make things easier for my brother? Are you implying that his life holds more importance than mine? Absolutely not, Robert interjected. Both of you are equally valuable to us, and we love you both equally. Everyone here, including your brother, believes that you and Rachel are meant to be together. Once your baby arrives, he will be the best possible uncle and will contribute financially to help with the baby's expenses. Love and hate are two sides of the same coin. Whether you label what you're feeling as love or hate, it remains a strong emotion towards her. No one here will force you into anything, especially not me. I love you, Jake, and as a parent, I want what is best for both of my sons, not just one. All eyes were on me, and I could sense their disapproval of my expression. After everything I have discovered about Rachel, her actions have consequences. I have fallen out of love with her. Both she and my brother have betrayed me in the worst possible way. I have no interest in marrying Rachel or raising another man's child with her. It will never happen. Everyone could see the determination in my eyes, knowing that I meant every word. Rachel was now in tears, devastated by my outright rejection. Robert added more wisdom to the conversation. Jake, if you refuse, then that leaves him with no other option. David, you must step up and marry her if she is willing so you can raise and support your child. I don't see how you can attend college full-time and do that. I'm sorry, son. Without Jake's cooperation, I don't see any alternative. I could sense David's intense anger towards me due to this turn of events. His hatred towards me was evident in his expression. David, I understand that your life will never be the same, but we Whitfields never shy away from our responsibilities. Your mother and I raised you better than that. When Jake departs for school in the autumn, the assistant position he has been holding will open up for you. You have the opportunity to work alongside me and progress up the ranks. While it may not offer the same level of income as a college graduate, you can manage to get by if you continue residing here with your new wife in your room for a period. It might be a bit cramped with the baby, but we will find a solution. I understand that you are allowing them to stay in the same household as me while I pursue my education. It will be a constant reminder of their betrayal every time I return home from school. I'm not sure if I can handle that on a daily basis. Jake, you do not have a say in this matter. Your mother and I are the homeowners, and we care for both you and David equally. We will not abandon him despite everything that has occurred. Feeling disheartened, I uttered, I am exhausted. Good night, and made it clear that I did not want to be around the betrayers any longer. The following morning, I called in sick and left the house with determination. I visited 3 local storage facilities and secured a suitable deal. The monthly fee would be deducted from my checking account automatically. Subsequently, I went to the local recruitment center and informed them that I would enlist with the first branch that could relocate me from this town promptly. The Navy responded swiftly and initiated the process. I underwent the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery ASVAB test and passed the MEPS medical examination at an entrance processing station. After signing the necessary paperwork, I was informed that I would be heading to boot camp in 2 days. Upon completion, I felt a sense of immense relief. I could not bear the thought of living with 2 individuals who had betrayed me, especially since they would be family. I rented a small U-Haul trailer and returned to the house, a place I would never consider my home again, and that was my priority. Linda and Robert were at work. Robert had reached out to me questioning why I had called off work. I refrained from responding. David and Rachel were once again engaging in intimate activities in his room. It seemed they were making the most of their situation. I had no desire to interact with either of them again. I had already moved half of my belongings into the trailer when he emerged to inquire about the situation in my room. Despite his questions, I chose to ignore him completely. I continued to transfer all my bedroom furniture, clothes, and personal items into the trailer. He threatened to call our parents, but I paid no attention. Rachel also attempted to communicate with me, but I remained silent. After loading the trailer, I transported my entire life collection to a storage unit. My phone was buzzing with notifications, but I opted not to respond. Instead, I checked into a budget-friendly motel with a small suitcase, preparing for my journey to boot camp. I considered visiting the house that evening, but decided my emotions were still too raw. I planned to bid farewell the following evening before embarking on my new life adventure. Surprisingly, I slept better that night, feeling empowered by taking control of my life and determining my own destiny. The next day, I contacted some friends to inform them of my situation. They had heard rumors but lacked concrete information. I disclosed the truth about David and Rachel's actions, receiving well wishes from all. That evening, Linda tearfully embraced me, expressing her concern for my well-being. David and Rachel entered the room upon hearing the commotion. "Linda, please ask them to leave immediately," I said through gritted teeth. Robert intervened. "They are staying. David resides here, and Rachel is visiting with her new fiancé, so she is welcome too. It appears that you no longer reside in this room based on its appearance. Can you please explain the situation, Jake?" he inquired. "Very well. If they are staying, then I shall leave. I hold strong negative feelings towards them and consider them no longer a part of my life. You do not have the authority to dictate my actions in my own home, son. Your brother resides here, so they are permitted to stay." "You are correct, Robert. Therefore, I shall depart. I had intended to inform you both of my plans, but I refuse to do so in the presence of individuals who I consider no longer living. Here are the keys to the family car that I have been using." I handed them to Linda. "I have enlisted in the Navy. Perhaps we will meet again in 4 years. I swiftly exited the house and disappeared from view as Linda wept and called out to me. I chose not to look back and reveal my own tears. Instead of calling an Uber, I decided to take a walk on this pleasant evening. I turned off my phone and embarked on a new chapter in my life. The following 10 weeks were spent in boot camp at the Naval Station in Great Lakes, Illinois. I refrained from informing Linda and Robert about my graduation. I proudly marched into the ceremony alongside 800 of my fellow sailors to a round of applause. After the ceremony, family members and loved ones rushed to greet the new sailors. To my surprise, Linda and Robert were among the crowd. They must have made arrangements to attend. "Why are you both here?" I inquired as Linda embraced me. Robert gave me a firm handshake, showing his approval of the man I was becoming. Then David and Rachel approached me. "Why are they present?" I questioned. In a soothing tone, Linda explained, "They are now married. Isn't that wonderful? And you will be the best uncle to their baby when it arrives, won't you?" My expression revealed my displeasure. "I apologize, Linda. I urgently need to use the restroom before the graduation ceremonies begin, as I am about to burst." I departed and made my way to a section of the camp restricted to enlisted personnel only. Hopefully, this will send a clear message to everyone. They traveled all this distance just to exchange a couple of sentences. Luckily, my phone was in my bunk. I hadn't expected any calls. Most of the graduates were granted a few days off to spend time with family before being assigned to their next duty station. I didn't ask for any time off. I stayed on the base for 3 days before heading off to school. My ASVAB tests indicated that I was eligible for HVAC training, which was exactly what I wanted. We started with the basics, and as time passed, my skills allowed me to become a mechanic, servicing the large variable speed centrifugal and screw chillers that cooled ships and submarines. The rest of my 4-year service in the Navy was spent on a carrier. The size of it was astonishing. It felt like a floating city. I made the decision not to re-enlist and left the military with a wealth of training and experience. Detroit, Train, and Carrier are the 3 primary brands of centrifugal and screw chillers that I had experience servicing. In my hometown, Detroit was a subsidiary of General Electric. I applied and was hired as a service technician. I had to make some adjustments, but the principles were the same, whether on a ship or in a building. I settled into an apartment and unpacked all of my belongings. Seeing everything again made me a little homesick, so I decided to catch up with my parents. We met at a restaurant. "Oh, Jake, you've grown so much. I can't believe how handsome you are, my son. Let me take a good look at you," Linda praised. "I'm 24 now, Linda, so yeah, I've matured a bit." "Hey, Robert, I'm now a fully qualified service technician with General Electric, primarily working on factory service for centrifugal and screw chillers, which is a bit different from the reciprocating units you deal with in your job. I don't think we'll meet much, but maybe in some supply shops." "Wow, General Electric, that's a big deal. I'm proud of you, kid. That reminds me, now that you're there, David could try for an apprentice spot. With your word, I bet he'd get it. They pay more there, and David really needs that for him, Rachel, and the kids. I wish you'd stop being mad at your brother and Rachel. They really want to see you again, and we're sad you didn't want them around," Robert shared. "No way, Robert, that chance is gone. If he tries to get a job where I am, I'll make sure he doesn't get it. Let's talk about something else. I really mean it. I don't want to hear about them ever again. They mean nothing to me. I'll make sure I'm never near them again." Okay, I won't push it, Jake, but just so you know, they bought their own place 6 months ago, so you can visit our old house without worrying about bumping into them. Fine, I'll still call first to be sure. They looked really unhappy with how stubborn I was being. I told them about my time in the Navy and how I learned to fix most types of AC and heating units. Robert was really proud. I talked about the places and ports I saw around the world. "Why did you just leave like that?" he asked. "You know why. You said as long as I lived with you, I had to deal with seeing them every day, so I made sure I wouldn't be living with you anymore." He just shook his head. I was introduced to Samantha Lee through my coworker, Paul Mitchell. After developing a strong friendship with Jake, he asked me to be his best man at his wedding, where Natalie was the wedding planner. It turned out that wedding planning was her profession, which she had taken over from her mother. During the rehearsal, I found it difficult to take my eyes off of her. We had a great time joking and teasing each other whenever we had a spare moment. It seemed like there was a mutual attraction between us. Our dating life began when we had dinner together at the rehearsal dinner. Dating Natalie had its challenges, especially because she worked odd hours meeting with clients and potential clients. Her busiest times were during the spring and summer, and she rarely had free holidays. On wedding days, she would stay with her clients until the event was over. However, despite these obstacles, we managed to make our relationship work. A year later, I realized that there was no reason to put my life on hold any longer. When Natalie was 23 and I was 24, I decided to propose to her. Her mother came out of retirement to plan and direct her own daughter's wedding. My parents absolutely adored Natalie. She had such a friendly and adaptable personality that she could fit in anywhere. I was incredibly proud of her on our wedding day. I made it clear to my parents that I didn't want my brother and his wife sneaking into the wedding or reception. Although Natalie had seen pictures of them shown to her by my parents, she had never met them in person. Despite my request, my family didn't cut them off completely. So I explained to Natalie that I would never be in the same place as my brother again, and if my parents wanted to invite both of us, they should only invite my brother, as I was the one giving the ultimatum. Natalie understood that I had always avoided events where my brother would be present. She quickly learned that this topic was sensitive for me, and she avoided bringing it up in conversation. Natalie has 2 older brothers whom she adores, and I get along well with them. 18 months later, our beloved daughter, Ella Grace Thompson, was born. She had beautiful brunette hair and brought so much joy into our lives. I heard that my brother had had 3 children, but my parents acted as if this was their first grandchild, which we were grateful for. Natalie's mother also did everything she could to spoil Sophie. Sophie wasn't necessarily a daddy's or a mama's girl. As she grew up, she loved both of us equally, and Natalie and I put a lot of effort into being there for her. We frequently visited both sets of grandparents, and there were always plenty of pictures being taken. We were happy to have strong relationships on both sides of the family. My mom and dad treated Natalie like a daughter. After celebrating our 8th wedding anniversary, Paul Mitchell recommended Natalie to his cousin to direct their wedding. The day after he attended the rehearsal, he met up with me during my lunch break on a job I was working on. "Hey Jake, how are things going?" Jake started. "To be honest, not too well. It looks like you'll have to recover around 700 pounds of refrigerant from this chiller to fix all the low side leaks I just found. It's going to be a real pain. I understand your frustration, man. I have to replace a motor bearing on a 900-gallon per minute open drive motor, but that'll be a piece of cake compared to what you're dealing with." "But that's not why I came to see you," he mentioned. "Yeah, what's going on? What I have to tell you isn't going to be easy, but I would want to know if I were in your shoes. So I hope you don't get mad at me for being the messenger." "What are you talking about, Jake?" "Jake, you know I think Natalie is amazing. That's why I recommended her to my cousin Ashley for her wedding. Yeah, she mentioned that she was working on that one recently. We appreciate your support, and thank you for the recommendation. I'm afraid you won't be so grateful once I show you something I think you should know." "Oh, what is it, Jake?" "Well, I was at my cousin's wedding rehearsal yesterday, and the dinner that followed. Natalie made an announcement to everyone about hiring an assistant named Steve Brown, introducing him as someone who would be shadowing her to learn the ropes. It seemed like no big deal at first, right? However, the situation took a turn when I realized that Natalie never informed me about hiring an assistant, nor did she ever mention anyone by that name to me. To make matters worse, it seemed like Natalie didn't even recognize me, probably because it had been a while since I had been around her. She didn't react to my presence at all. After the rehearsal ended and people were gathering for the dinner, the caterer approached me asking about the power panel because the outlets weren't working. They needed it for the heat lamps used on specialty foods. I looked around for Natalie or Steve, but they were nowhere to be found. When I inquired, someone mentioned that they had gone into the back room to check on something. I went to the back room, which was unlocked, and found it pitch black. I noticed a faint light around the corner, and as I approached, I was shocked to see Natalie performing a sexual act on Steve. He was using his phone's light to illuminate the scene. I can't confirm if he was recording it, but I captured about 90 seconds of the incident on my phone, which has excellent low-light capabilities. I'm sorry, Jake, but I felt you needed to know. I hope you would do the same for me if our roles were reversed. I understand this must be difficult for you, Jake. I assure you that I recorded the video with your best interests in mind. I will transfer the clip to your phone and delete it from mine. It appears that this wasn't their first encounter based on what I witnessed. I'm sorry that you had to witness this, Jake. I appreciate your honesty and discretion in bringing this to my attention. Thank you for looking out for me, my friend. Later that night, Natalie phoned me at 10 p.m. upon reaching home. Where are you and Sophie? It's late. She should already be in bed. She's spending the night at your mother's. I'm at a hotel. Wait, what? What's going on, Jake? Why are you at a hotel? You're not making any sense. I'll respond to your question with a question. Who is Steve Brown? Who? Steve who? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Are you telling me that you haven't hired a man named Steve Brown as your assistant? Oh, you mean at work? That Steve Brown? No, silly. He's not my assistant. He's just one of the florists I recommend to clients, and we do a lot of weddings together. I see. And does his florist work also involve you sucking his what? How dare you? You're talking crazy, Jake. Where's all this coming from? I'm sending you a short video clip, Natalie. Let me know when you've watched it. 2 minutes later. How? Where? Oh God, where did you get this? It doesn't matter, Natalie. I'm divorcing you. After what Rachel did to me, you know exactly how I feel about infidelity. It'll be fair. We'll split everything right down the middle. If you fight me on this on any issue, especially custody of Sophie, which we'll share 50-50, then I'll send copies of that video to all of your prospective customers and all of our family and friends. Goodbye, Natalie. And I ended the call. She knew better than to test my resolve. 8 years of marriage down the drain. We sold the house and split the proceeds. She didn't argue with me about anything. It was an amicable divorce. I never asked her any more questions about her affair or if Shed had others. It wouldn't have helped. We did a great job co-parenting Sophie. As far as I knew, she didn't berate me behind my back. From the age of 6 until 12, Sophie was given the best by both of us. I never badmouthed her mother to her, but I did share a few salient details with friends and family. I could not simply exclude Natalie from my life like I did with my brother and ex-fiancé. We would encounter each other during the weekly exchanges with Sophie as well as at Sophie's birthdays and holidays. Despite Natalie's attempts to reconcile, I firmly rejected each one. She maintained a close relationship with my parents due to their role as grandparents, which I had no issue with. Sophie underwent therapy once a week for 2 years at my insistence to ensure she had the necessary tools to cope with her emotions following our divorce. She excelled in school and graduated with honors. As a graduation gift, I bought her a safe, slightly used car, covering all costs myself as I wanted it that way. Before Sophie started college, I explained to her the specific reason behind my divorce from her mother. Without going into graphic details, I clarified that her mother had been involved in an intimate affair with another man, which led to our separation. Sophie had previously been told a different, whitewashed version of events by her mother, but she accepted my explanation as the truth. I also disclosed the reason behind cutting ties with my brother's family due to a similar betrayal of trust. Sophie took everything in stride, understanding and accepting my decisions. When Sophie began college, Jake introduced me to Tasha McMasters, his widowed sister-in-law who had lost her husband to cancer 2 years prior. Tasha and I connected on a deep level, forming a strong bond. After being burned twice, I had no interest in pursuing marriage, and she wasn't ready to change her name yet. She still longed for her soulmate. We met each other's needs and lived a fulfilling life together. A year later, she moved in with me, and we navigated the blended family situation successfully. Sophie and Tasha's daughter, Amber, graduated from different universities in the same year with their 4-year degrees. Sophie found her dreamboat during her junior year, Henry Johnson. He was a nice guy who truly loved Sophie. Although we disagreed on some political issues, Sophie happily accepted his proposal, and they planned to marry in 9 months. Natalie and I discussed budgets and expectations with them. After deciding on a number, we agreed to split the expense evenly. It was at Natalie's upper limit, and she couldn't afford to contribute more. I could have easily covered the wedding budget alone, but she insisted on paying her share, likely to have control over the wedding since wedding details are typically handled by the mother. I left them to it. Sophie requested my list of potential wedding guests. She and her mother had already finalized their list and were willing to add any additional names within budget. I asked for a copy of their list to see which of my friends were missing. When I reviewed it 2 days later, I was surprised to see David and Rachel Whitfield and their children, Donna, Clay, and Lisa, prominently featured. Clay was listed as a groomsman, and Lisa as the flower girl. I had made it clear to Sophie how I felt about my brother and his family, so this inclusion was unexpected. I had a chat with Sophie and Brian because I had to. Sophie, you know my thoughts on my brother and his kin. I've been open about it, yet you've gone and asked all of them to your big day, including 2 of their kids in the party. What gives? Robert, I love you tons. Brian and I both do, but I got curious about them, who they are, and why you don't like them. I needed to see them for myself and make up my own mind. I get this might bug you, Robert, but for the past 4 years, I'd been hanging out with them without you knowing. I kept it quiet because I didn't want to upset you. Upset me? You went and got close to them behind my back, knowing how I feel? Yes. We all kept it a secret from you, guessing you wouldn't like it. They're actually great folks. I thought bringing them to the wedding might help fix things with you and a part of your family you've missed for too long. I'm grown now. I can choose my guests, and I pick them for my day. You're right, my dear, but like you said, you knew how I felt, and that's why you all snuck around until the wedding was near. I'm shocked you didn't spring this on me at the wedding itself. We thought about that but decided it might make you mad and spoil my day, so I chose to tell you now so you could get used to the idea. They've said they won't make trouble. They miss you and want to see you again. Please do this for me, Robert. It's my day. Does your mom know about this? She knows how I feel. Why didn't she speak up? Of course she knows, Robert. Linda, Grandma, and Grandpa said we should all meet up and fix our family ties to how they used to be. You think you can judge me? What if you had a sister who took Brian from you right before you were going to marry him, and then she got pregnant with his baby? Would you be so kind and loving to your sister then? You've always known where I stand. If my brother and his bunch come, maybe I should think again about paying for my part of the wedding. Oh, really? She was really mad now. Robert, it's time to drop the old stuff. It's all gone and done with. Holding on to anger for so long isn't good for you. Just let it go once and for all. Say hello at my wedding and mend the family. Sophie, dear, you know I love you, but this isn't yours to fix. You can want this for me as much as you like, but it won't make me want it. You've never let me down, Robert. Not once in my whole life that I can think of. You promised you'd pay half. Are you going to break your promise just because my aunt and uncle will be there? My promise should mean something too, Robert. I promised they would come to my wedding and that Clay could be a groomsman and Lisa could be our flower girl. She had a point there. I've always kept my word, and she knows it. I let out a big sigh. You're right, my girl. Sorry for not seeing it. My feelings got in the way. Thank you for reminding me that I keep my word. I'll pay my share of the wedding because I said I would. And you're right too. You made a promise, and just like me, you should keep it. Sophie hugged me, happy, but I had more to say. As we're talking about keeping promises, I made a promise a long time ago never to be in the same room as them. I don't lie, and I always keep my promise. When you asked them all to come, you didn't ask me by mistake. You knew I didn't like them, but you still chose to invite them to your wedding. It's your choice, dear, and I respect it. I understand you want to be close to them, and I would never tell you to stay away from them because they didn't hurt you. They only hurt your dad. But I won't walk you down the aisle because I won't be there. Maybe your wonderful uncle can do it. No! You can't do that. Don't you dare say you won't come to my wedding and walk me down the aisle with them there. If you don't come, they'll never talk to you again, she said with a lot of anger. Sophie, dear, you don't know how much it hurts to hear you say that. The bad actions of my ex-brother and his wife, who hurt me, are now complete. They made you choose them over me and keep me away from your wedding. No, Robertie, that's not what I want. I want you at my wedding, and I want you to be happy with them there. Is that what you want? Yes. I wanted a brother who wouldn't hurt me. I wanted a partner who wouldn't cheat and ruin my family. I wanted parents who would listen to me. I wanted a wife, your mom, who wouldn't cheat on me. I wanted all these things, but I got none of them, dear. Since you promised them all, it's better you break your promise to just one person, me, rather than to everyone else. It's the smart and careful choice to make. Now, please let me be. I'm going to drink to forget the pain of not being at your wedding. I wanted to be alone with my sadness. I didn't get what I wanted. My mad mom and dad, my angry ex, Natalie, plus my upset girlfriend, Tasha, and her kid, Amber, all tried hard to make me change my mind and say sorry to Sophie and be friends again with my brother, who I haven't talked to in over 25 years. Tasha said by not going to the wedding and not walking Sophie down the aisle, I would mess up my bond with my daughter. Why talk to David or Rachel now, after so long? I must say, there's now a gap with Sophie, and every family member seems to jump on me for it. I thought hard about it. My choice to keep away from my brother was for me, and my hurt was deep. I told them all that my rules kept my heart safe. But then they all joined to say when my rule means others must feel the same, the rule isn't good. They made me think. Is it worth losing so much just to keep this rule of mine? Living with me, Tasha got to talk to me more. Jake, love, please try to see sense. Can't you try to find a middle ground, one where you can keep your space but not break your ties? What if you go to her wedding and walk her down the aisle but stay far from them? Splitting your bad feelings for your brother from Sophie's big day could help you focus your feelings and energy better. Is the old hurt from your brother worth losing so much over? But don't you get it, Tasha? Sophie chose to push me away for someone who broke my trust. It doesn't count if it was 25 years back. It's about it happening. It's simple to say move on when it's not on you. Say to Sophie, if her man cheats tomorrow and goes with someone else, but I stayed pals with him, would she like that? Tasha thought about my point. Sophie can't tell you when to let go, but she can choose who to invite to her big day or be close with her uncle. You've got to think if avoiding your brother is worth losing your bond with Sophie. If you can't bend a bit, you might hurt your link with Sophie badly. Could you live with that? I think folks should respect my line. There are types of getting by I'm okay with. I got tired of always having to explain myself to everyone. I snapped at them, and now I'm not picking up their calls. I've cut ties with my ex, Sophie, my folks, and a bunch of other family and friends trying to help. The vibe was icy at my place. We couldn't find a middle ground. Even though it seemed impossible, I was stubborn, mad, and sad, all mixed up. I spent loads of time thinking on what I might lose. Was it just my pride against being with my daughter? I love Sophie, truly. Then I wondered, who really loses with what I want? I had to own up. I was shaky. Sophie hadn't told me David and his folks were not coming, so she was doing what I told her, keep her promise to them and break hers to me. Like Spock once said from that Charles Dickens line, more people's needs are bigger than just a few. I felt low on a Sunday, 2 weeks before the wedding. My doorbell rang. Amber was out with her friends, so it couldn't be someone for her. Natasha shouted that she was busy and instructed me to check who was at the door. My stomach churned with anticipation, wondering if I would have to defend myself once again against an unwanted intruder. Eventually, I mustered the courage to stand up from my chair and see who it was. To my astonishment, I muttered in disbelief. "Sophie? Roberty, may we come in?" Sophie asked, beaming from ear to ear in her magnificent wedding dress. Standing beside her was Henry Johnson, her fiancé, looking dashing in a sharp tuxedo. Behind the couple stood an unfamiliar man in a plain dark suit holding a Bible. "Of course, sweetheart. Come on in. You look absolutely stunning in that dress." "You're so beautiful it takes my breath away," I praised. "Thank you, Roberty. I was hoping you'd be pleased." "And you too, Brian, you look very sharp," I complimented. "Thank you, sir," he replied. "Welcome to our humble abode, sir. My name is Jake Whitfield, and you are?" I inquired, addressing the man in the dark suit. "I am Pastor Anthony Clark. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. I am here at the request of this lovely couple," he introduced himself. "What's happening, sweetheart?" "I mean, I'm not complaining at all. You look gorgeous. Did you come by so I could see you in all your glory before the wedding?" I asked, slightly confused. "No, Roberty. Brian and I are getting married," Sophie explained. "I know that, silly. But why are you here now?" I questioned. "You don't understand, Roberty. Brian and I are getting married right here today, in your backyard. We brought the preacher with us, and the photographer will be here in 15 minutes. We had to plan it this way to make it work," Sophie clarified. "What? But why?" I trailed off, still trying to process the unexpected news. "Brian convinced me, Roberty. He reminded me that you have always been an exceptional father and an honorable man since the day I was born. He asked me, out of everyone I know besides him, whose opinion matters the most to me. Without hesitation, I told him it was you, hands down. All of a sudden, it hit me hard." She began to cry. "I'm sorry, Robert. You are so important to me, just after Brian, but I'd been treating you bad like that wasn't true. And there's more. Brian asked me who I wanted to walk me down the aisle. You know who I picked. He then asked me what's stopping that. I said you won't be there if my uncle is. Then Brian simply said so. It was like my eyes were opened. Robert, this is not a drill. Brian and I are really getting married today in your yard. You're going to walk me down the aisle, making my dream come true today, no matter what anyone else says." I cried as my girl showed me how much she loves me. I couldn't have asked for this, but they're doing it. I shook Brian's hand hard. "Thank you, Brian. I see now why Sophie picked you to be her partner." He just smiled big and shook my hand back. I had another question. "What about your mom? Won't she be very mad at you both for skipping the big wedding and just eloping like this?" Sophie looked sad. I wasn't sure about telling her today, but what she said recently made me decide. "We talked about how you want Ben about your brother. Linda got me to secretly talk to your brother's family 4 years back. Talking about the wedding, she laughed at how you want change your mind, saying you're acting like a little kid. Linda knows how much I want you to walk me down the aisle, so I asked her straight up, do you think I should honor Uncle David's family invitation to the wedding, knowing full well that Roberty won't be there because of it?" Her response floored me. She said absolutely. For clarification, I rephrased the question, asking her, "Are you telling me to intentionally choose Uncle David's family over my daddy?" She shocked me again with her answer. "Your daddy is the most unforgiving alive. David is willing to forgive your dad for the way he's treated his family all these years and is eager to reconnect with him to heal the severed relationship. But no, not your self-righteous father. I'm sorry, Sophie, but that's exactly what he is. And I admit that he found out about me with another man one time. One time. I begged and pleaded for forgiveness, but what did he do? He divorced me. Sure, there were other men that he never knew about, but he divorced me for that one instance and threatened my livelihood if I became uncooperative in the divorce. So yes, Sophie, I'm telling you as your mother to honor David's family invitation to ensure that your father isn't there. Either that or force him to grow a pair and man up by mending his stubborn alienation with David. Sophie continued, couples elope every day for various reasons. Sure, Linda will be angry for a while, but she, as my parent, was insisting that I choose someone else over my other parent, you. That's when I realized that she was manipulating me to hurt you because you divorced her. She also expended a lot of effort to put me together with your brother's family, nurtured by Grandma and Grandpa. Because I listened too closely to Linda, I nearly lost my dad. Had that happened, I never would have forgiven any of them. So it's a good thing that Brian helped me come to my senses when he did. Since Linda insisted that I choose one parent over another, that's exactly what I'm doing here today. I wiped tears from my eyes and hugged her. I was so proud to see how wise and grown up this lovely pair was. Then I thought of something. Did you say photographers were coming? I might let you down, dear, but I gave back my fancy suit weeks ago. I'd be happy to walk beside you in just my undies, but I won't look right in the photos. Tasha made a sound, smiled big, and gave me a small wink. By chance, I went to the suit place a few days back, and they had your suit to rent. It's hiding in the closet with your winter coats. What luck, she said with a cheeky grin. So you knew and kept it from me? I was shocked. I only keep things from you when it's for the best, she said, and this was a good reason. As I put on my suit, the person taking photos and the one making videos showed up and started figuring out where to do their work for this quick wedding. They began with taking shots of Brian and Sophie to save time because they had another wedding later. We made do without someone to lead the wedding. Tasha used a CD that Sophie had given her and played it on our boombox. The whole thing was done in less than 30 minutes. The preacher spoke so well and knew his stuff. I was so proud walking my daughter down the aisle for that short walk. The person taking photos and the one making videos caught every moment. Sophie had brought the top part of their wedding cake for us to cut and share. It was just us there, Sophie and Brian, Tasha and me, the preacher, and the photo and video folks, so 7 of us instead of the big group of 175 they had invited before. When it was time to sign the wedding paper as witnesses, the newlyweds asked Tasha and me. We were over the moon. Sophie inserted another CD into the player, allowing her and her newlywed husband to share their first official dance together. Following this, the customary father-daughter dance took place, with Brian gracefully twirling Tasha around in the backyard. It was a flawless moment. Once the preacher, photographer, and videographer had departed, Tasha kindly invited the newly married couple into our home, where she had prepared a delightful feast consisting of everyone's favorite dishes. I was astounded by how she had managed to conceal her actions from me. It made me wonder if there was more to this remarkable woman than I had initially realized. After the 4 of us had enjoyed a wonderful meal together, I felt compelled to inquire further. What about your original wedding plans and honeymoon? I asked. Brian spoke on behalf of the couple, saying, we only had to pay a 10 charge to reschedule all of our airline accommodation and excursion reservations for our honeymoon. Instead of waiting 2 weeks, we will be starting our week-long honeymoon tonight. Once we change our clothes here, if you could kindly take us to the airport, we will be flying to the Maldives. We have already prepared separate work-rated cover stories, which have been announced to those who need to know. This cleverly explains our unavailability and absence this week. In everyone's mind, the wedding will still take place in 2 weeks. Just a moment, Brian. I retrieved my wallet, took out a credit card, and handed it to him. Brian, I already consider you to be an excellent son-in-law. If you would like to be elevated to the status of a fantastic son-in-law, I have a small request for you. What is it, sir? He inquired. I insist that you use this credit card to cover the additional surcharge expense. Furthermore, I want you to charge no less than $3,000 to this card for anything that 2 of you desire to spend during your time there. How you choose to use it is entirely up to you. Just remember, not a penny less. You can exceed the amount, but not go below it. Understood? I emphasized. Understood, he replied, as they both embraced me in gratitude for the unexpected gift. "I have one more thing to say," I interjected. "Although I could have easily covered all the expenses for your wedding, your mother insisted on paying half, probably so she could have control over everything. If she gives you any trouble about feeling cheated out of her share, I am more than willing to write you a check to reimburse her for every penny." "Thank you, Robert. Brian and I might just take you up on that generous offer. But for today, I have no regrets. This was the perfect wedding day for me." I held her in a tight embrace for about 5 minutes before letting her go to change her clothes. 2 weeks later, Sophie and Henry Johnson arrived just in time for their originally planned wedding ceremony, dressed casually. It came as no surprise to anyone that I was not present. "Hello, everyone. Brian and I want to express our heartfelt gratitude to all our friends and family for joining us today to celebrate our marriage," Sophie announced. "What you may not know is that we actually eloped 2 weeks ago and had a private ceremony. But that doesn't diminish our desire to share this joyous occasion with all of you. So if it's all right with everyone, let's go ahead and start the wedding reception. Let's get the party started," she exclaimed. The crowd erupted with cheers and excitement as the DJ took over. Naturally, there were no professional photographers present. Instead, disposable cameras were placed around the reception hall for guests to capture their own memories of the event. Sophie's mother, Natalie, was seething with anger at her daughter for undermining her plans, but she made an effort not to show it in front of the other guests. David, Rachel, and their 3 children, Donna, Clay, and Lisa, along with my parents, were deeply disappointed that they would not have a formal role in the wedding party. They had eagerly anticipated a long-awaited family reunion of the estranged brothers, which now seemed unlikely. Amber, the kid of Tasha, told me something she got from Sophie without my asking. "Rachel sure did learn after she lost you. She got stronger, made up her mind not to go away again, and stuck with your brother to take care of her kids. It wasn't the family she first wanted, though. I could see the joke in that, even though I thought I'd never do it. In a soft moment, I got down on one knee when we were at the beach with the sun low, and the view just right. I wasn't sure if Tasha was ready to take my last name, Whitfield, but she meant so much to me I had to try again. She said yes." Hey, listeners! If you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with more cheating tales. Wow, what a journey! Relationships can be tough, and sometimes the ones closest to us are the ones that hurt us the most. What would you do in a situation like this? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next video.